Whoever's looking at the dog.
Have you entered the treasury of snow, or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the day of trouble, for the day of battle and war? Job 38, verse 22 through 23. As we address the issue of climate change, it is a constant battle for the state of Nebraska to implement a plan. The state of Nebraska holds itself in high moral regard as a pro-life state, but they are ignoring an issue that is affecting many Nebraskans annually. Nebraska's lack of a climate change plan is morally reprehensible to the thousands of Nebraskans that live here. Without the implementation of a plan, we are being affected economically, socially, and morally. A contingency plan is a plan designed to take a possible future event or circumstance into account. And in Grant Schlut's article, Despite Fierce Weather, Nebraska Avoids Climate Change Plan of 2019, he states, Nebraska is one of 7 plain states that haven't created a formal plan to confront the impacts of more extreme weather, and ignoring the trend of 33 other states in the District of Columbia that have done so since the mid-2000s. A Nebraska legislative committee has called upon this issue once in 2016, but the bill was shut down in 2017. This left many supporters astonished. John Christensen, an adjunct assistant professional at UCLA's Institute of Environment and Sustainability, stated in Schlut's article, the reluctance in Nebraska may be driven by the political polarization of climate change science. Many of our lawmakers either deny climate change or demand a dramatic and immediate change, making it hard to pass a plan for the issue. In E.A. Cruden's article, The Midwest Flooding Crisis is a terrifying preview of climate impacts to come. He states that experts more broadly argue that the flooding should have sent a message to lawmakers and the government at every level that there needs to be more done to prepare for climate change. Despite this evidence, reality hasn't sunken in for many lawmakers. Even our own lawmakers haven't brought up that climate change is happening after the destruction this March's flooding has caused. Without a climate change contingency plan, our economy, society, and health will suffer. We suffered a lot with this recent flood, with physical and agricultural damages. Physically, families and farmers have lost their land and their homes, and the state was affected by their roads and bridges being washed away. This flood has caused over $1.4 billion in damage in Nebraska alone, and our farmers lost their livestock, valuable unsold grain, and their livelihoods, according to Marlene Bakar Baladasi and Jason Hanna article in 2019. Dustin Sheldon, a farmer in Iowa, said about 50% of farmers will not recover after this recent flooding. And Governor Pete Ricketts said this was the most widespread disaster that we have had in our state's history. Farm damages were estimated to have $400 million in damage to their crops and $400 million in damage to livestock. Our farmers are worried they also won't plant this year, as many of them have lost their crop. Balkati and Hanna make a point that 1 bushel of corn sells for $3.40, and most farmers have 10,000 bushels or more, which meant they lost $34,000 in damage in revenue, or $34,000 in revenue. This was already a financially challenging time, and according to the American Farm Bureau, the Midwest farm bankruptcies were up 19% in 2018 from a year prior, and they were at the highest level in more than 10 years. The bankruptcies are going to rise significantly in Nebraska due to the lack of a plan to protect our farmers from climate change. Morally, Nebraska officials claim that we are a pro-life state, but why does that statement only occur for our stance on abortion when our citizens are struggling? We should be protecting our people so the younger generations may have a future, and Senator Pat Pansing-Brooks states that in Schlut's article that this is a very serious issue for our generation and our future generations. We aren't living up to our best standards, and we aren't doing everything we can to combat this, as other states have proven that there are plans that can effectively change the climate. In Ariana Brocarius' article, Cities Plan for Climate Change Resilience, she states Martha Shulisky, Nebraska State climatologist, is co-leading a 2-year project to help Midwestern cities plan for climate change. And Schlusky states the overall goal is to increase resiliency to extreme events and climate variability and climate change. And the way we can do that is through the incorporation of climate information and transferring it into planning. And this will help better the lives for many. Nebraska implementing a plan would mean they are sticking to their morals of being a pro-life state, and they would prove that they are focusing on our future generations. As other states implement better insurance policies for their farmers and find ways to eliminate harmful emissions, that they are doing everything they can to pave the way to a better environment for themselves. By looking at the benefits of a climate change contingency plan and the problems of the lack thereof, we can see how Nebraska's failure to implement a plan is morally reprehensible to our citizens. We went over how the lack of a contingency plan has negatively impacted Nebraskans economically, socially, and morally. To keep the status of a pro-life state, Nebraska needs to come up with a plan and fast.